Dad will be up soon.
Come to Barbara's as soon as you can. Don't let him know you know, okay? You okay? You okay?
Yeah. What's up, horror fiends? Welcome back. Your boy Ricky Grimes back here with 3 corners of horror exclusively here, Horror Fiend TV on YouTube. Please, before we continue on, like this video, please share, subscribe to the channel. We would greatly appreciate that. We got a very special episode today with a very special guest. So this film we are going to cover today is called The CLOVEHITCH Killer, streaming on both Hulu and Netflix. This film here was actually recommended by our very special guest, Lexi. Welcome to 3 Corners of Horror. How are you today?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
We are peachy. And also, don't forget, we got the head of the table, the tribal chief himself, JR. What's up, brother?
Hey, man. Ready to do another movie about a serial killer, but this one's a little different.
That's right. The bronze body has spoken. Joe, what up, player? What's good?
Hey, I'm good. Actually, I'm looking forward to this. I mean, it's our first, fan review. So this is going to be, she's popping our cherry.
Oh, awesome. All right, well, let's get right into this one. All right, so this film here, we're gonna go around the table here. So quick, first impressions, initial thoughts. What did you like the film or not? Lexi, we're gonna start with you. Give us your quick overall impressions about this one.
I absolutely love scary movies. So when it comes to something like this, where it's more thriller-like and not so horror, it makes me tune in so much more because I'm like, okay, wait, that I did not expect that. Then it turns another twist, and this one was definitely different when it came. I feel like a psychological type of film. So this one really kept me on my seat, edge of my seat.
Joe, how about you, Joe?
For me, I liked it. I mean, it was a slow burn. It is a psychological, like she said. And I know most people get put off with the slow burn. For me, I do like a slow burn, especially if it has a good killer ending. Did this one deliver on the killer ending? I guess we'll see. This one has Dylan McDermott, who I absolutely love him. He has done so many good roles. I mean, he's done American Horror Story. I mean, Murder House. if you're a fan of that, that was one of his best horror little roles. But there's other stuff that he does. So going in, he was in it. So I was looking forward to it.
JR, talk to me, bro.
Well, it was an interesting movie that was basically about the BTK killer, but they removed the violence that, we're accustomed to seeing in serial killer movies. Did it work? We'll talk about it later. But overall, yeah, it's a slow start, a slow burn, and it takes a while to really start picking up the pace. But overall, yeah, it's an interesting film.
Yeah, I enjoyed it overall. I think you mentioned the lack of the kills and stuff like that. I could see if you're a horror fanatic going in here wanting a serial killer gore story, it ain't that. And it's not made to be that as well. It's it took me halfway through the film to really understand that. I'm like, okay, I kind of know what I'm getting into. And with that being said, I'm going to compare this to how we mentioned Jeepers Creepers 2, how the lack of kills in that film killed it for me. Because that's Jeepers Creepers. You expect a high kill count. I think a film like this, where it's about a serial killer not in his prime and is focusing on what he's done in the past as opposed to what he's doing now, I think that's what the story was about, in my opinion. And I enjoyed it overall. So we'll get into everything we did and did not like. Lexi, what did you really like about this film? What stood out to you other than a thriller aspect? Was there anything else that really caught your attention that set it apart from anything else?
Well, as it begins, I'm very good and very intuitive when it comes to reading people. So when the dad started with the Boy Scouts at the church, I could just tell something immediately was off with them. And then the son being able to pick up on what I'm feeling. Like something's off with dad. He's starting to discover things. And it just twists and turns. The way they did it, and I'm sure we'll get more into it, but the way they set it up was, I liked it a lot. The way the setup is what it did it for me.
Cool. How are you, Joe? You're smiling over there, Joe. What you saying, Joe?
I did because no, I agree because for me,
Yeah.
so I liked the dynamic in the movie because this was actually where the patriarch or the family was a serial killer, and you got to see how this affects the child who starts figuring out that dad is a killer, but not just that. See the killer interact with the family, act like a loved one. Nothing is wrong, meanwhile disguising this evil thing that's inside of him. One of my other pros on the film was the scene where he was in the living room, which if everything comes up towards the end. Oh my! When I got to that scene, honestly, I mean, if there's many times I've watched movies, and right now I'm home alone this weekend. Adam's not with me, so this is those weekends where I kind of have a little bit of uneasiness being home alone. So I put all the locks on. That scene right there, just when he's standing over her, it was so beautifully done. It was so creepy, and just the thought that you can just be taking a nap and this person could be standing over you, it added to the creep factor of what the killer was.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? This scene right here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this movie, I mean, I do like the whole taking of the question is what would you do if you knew your dad was a serial killer? That's where the psychological twist takes in this movie. But one of the characters that I really enjoy this movie, and I'll talk about it in the cons part, Cassie. I mean, the fact that the twist you had with her and the real reason why she was into this whole like investigation on this killer. I mean, the way it tied into, it took a while to tie into. I think it was like almost towards the end of the movie where you really find out the whole twist of what's her role behind this whole investigation into this, her father. I thought the cast was pretty good. I mean, they did well in interacting with one another, making us like, feel like we're actually in the home where everything's taking place. Now there was it brought a lot of realism into the story because we're accustomed to seeing, just like I said before, the violence of the serial killer. We're not accustomed to seeing what it's like when you have a killer who's basically in hibernation and how he's getting accustomed to real life.
That's a
and
good
then
point.
all of a sudden that it starts coming back slowly, being brought up by the fact that his son is finding things out about him. I mean, that was an interesting dynamic in the film.
Yes, for me, that scene, JR, it looks like you're in the room yourself right now. That scene, and Joe brings it up.
Let's see if I can do it. No,
that was pretty
That's
good.
Yeah. Oh,
I hate
no,
to say,
no.
that was pretty good with your hood on. That was actually pretty creepy.
Yeah, that scene, Joe, you brought up a good point where he didn't wake her up, or he just stood in front of her, casually picked up the remote, turns off the TV. That wakes her up, because that would wake me up.
Yeah.
When she wakes up, she's like, what the? And he's like, the way the whole thing played out, it wasn't like overly dramatic or it took his time. And even throughout this entire sequence, I think up until the point where his wife left to go to her mother's house, the lack of music. I don't know if you guys caught that. There was no music whatsoever. Nothing. And the way the whole stretch up until like when the son, Tyler, up until the point he came in there with the rifle, that whole stretch was amazing to me.
Quiet. It was
quiet.
Completely quiet.
No music whatsoever. It was just, first of all, Dylan McDermott, unrecognizable. I knew he was in it, but halfway through the movie, I realized, what the fuck is this guy? Then I'm like,
his eyes. It
oh
was
my
all in
God.
his eyes, man.
He's the dad. He's the guy.
Yeah.
Because they got the fake belly, and it just made him look older. Awesome job. He's a good actor. You mentioned it. I very enjoyed his performance. The acting all around, I think, was pretty good all around. And I think the subtleness of this film, like no jump scares, no creepy music, nothing. That it was just a tale of, of killer in his prime. What happens when his family finds out, everything he's done. It don't affect Tyler. It don't just affect Tyler. It affects the mother, the young daughter, and I think all that plays a big role into it. And I did like all that. I mean, I think the sense of the way it was put together, it felt real in a sense. And I'm not watching a slasher. If it was a slasher and they put it like this, I would have been so mad. But it wasn't. It's not a slasher film whatsoever. It's just it's a tale of what about this serial killer who was BTK inspired 100%. GR, you nailed it. He's inspired by that, and it's just him in his prime. What's he up to when he's not caught? And he's got the itch. You know, was he killing people in between and they just never caught him?
It was a 10-year window where he was basically not doing anything.
Because the bastard actually blamed his own brother, his invalid brother, and the time matched too. So man, this guy's always.
Oh, hold on, because I picked up on. Now I see what I do to you guys. Lexi, was there something you wanted to jump in there and say?
Oh yeah. So when the son walked in with the hunt rifle in his hand, that's what did it for me. I'm like, wait, I thought he was off at camp.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, something's about to go down. And then it stops there and just switches into their point of view of it. And that is what did it for me. And
That was pretty good.
that was awesome. The way they put that together, the way the setup was to getting into that woman's house, to that scene, and then switching it up to now we're at Cassie and Tyler's point of view. I was like, wait, we went all the way back when the father dropped him off at the bus.
And I like when he snuck into the house through the basement. First of all, you see he's out of shape, but the way his body like contorted to slide in there, I'm thinking to myself, God, dog, man, that would have killed this guy. And of course, the rest of the scene's like playing with his back. Oh, I love that because he's past his prime. Like I love
was playing with his back since the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, when he couldn't sleep with his wife. Yeah,
that and when he was putting Uncle Rudy into the truck in the beginning, when they were picking him up at the senior center or something like that, he was putting him into the truck and then he closed the back of the truck and his back was hurting then.
Oh wow, I didn't catch that. Good call.
Both you guys actually with the whole back thing. Like I because you mentioned the 10-year mark thing, so I thought this was kind of around the same time that he was doing all this stuff. So it's after he was doing it all.
Oh yeah, it's way after.
No. So I now listening to you guys, I'm like, what the fuck did I miss? Because which is gonna crush my ending on this when we talk about it, because I thought it was while he was doing this.
No,
but you guys all just pointed out to me that this is like after.
Yeah, way after. Yeah, that's why. That's what I thought about.
Makes me wonder if Uncle Rudy knows more than what he can say now because he's paralyzed.
Yeah. Well, remember the opening sequence. They were celebrating at the anniversary, a memorial of all the victims who were killed by him. And one thing we forgot to mention is with this scene is the fact that when she wakes up, he claims that he was in a bank robbery that went wrong and that he hurt his back and then go, could you pick up my bag? Because my back is hurting. So he was very like nonchalant, almost like comedic in his approach before he decided basically to tie her up and, start with the pictures and, get in the middle of killing her before he got interrupted by Tyler.
He got me. I would have believed him. I would have been like, "Oh, you just want my bro? Take my car. I got money here. Good. I won't say a word. You're good with me, man." But the way he slowly went and transitioned from one point to the other until he got her tied up. Oh man, like you could tell why he was very successful doing what he was doing all those years. Maybe not as much now, but back then he's very meticulous. Which this is gonna. All right, go ahead.
Well, what sucks is listening to you guys. Now the rest of my parts, I have to in my brain rewrite because I did not realize that we were like in the years ahead. I thought because I said we were talking about BTK, which I guess now when we get later on, realize why sometimes it involves watching a movie more than I should have watched it a third time because I did watch it twice. So that I didn't pick up on the time jump at all.
Well, when I saw his back hurting in the beginning of the movie and then the whole 10-year thing came up, I was like, well, Uncle Rudy got into that car. So were you in the car with him? I was asking questions. We'll never know the answers. So they don't give us that. I'm like, you had to shut your brother up, I bet.
All right, guys, let's move on to what we did not like in this film. Cons. Lexi, was there anything that kind of jumped at you and you were going like,
No, I guess the religious kid bothered me. But yeah, he was the only thing that
Yeah, he
bothered
was
me.
a dick, and so was the other girl too. The first girl that told on him.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the one that
It was
called
his
him a
girlfriend.
perv.
He
The
was
one
trying to
is-
hook up with her.
Yeah. Oh my god. Why would she? Come on. Yeah. It just. Yeah. Anything else?
Nothing in particular. It was just that kid bothered me because he's trying to, go to him as a friend, and and he had to reach out to someone that the whole community hated, and
Yeah.
ended up obviously falling in love with her.
That made like religious people feel very like annoying, right? Hey, I'm a Catholic, and
I'm Catholic,
Yeah.
so
I don't take things personally, nothing like that. So when I saw this, and I'm like, oh god, this makes all of us look really bad. But what the hell? There's people like
Yeah.
that, you know.
I
Well,
thought
they're
it's
Christians,
just
right?
Some people are saved,
But-
and some people are too saved.
Yeah. There were Christians in this film. What were they? What was their religion?
They were Christians. You
Yeah,
gotta
they're
remember,
Christians.
this is
Christianity.
Texas. This is like the Bible Belt of the
Yes,
country.
absolutely. Oh, that's Kentucky, wasn't it?
No, it was Texas.
Could have swore it was
No, it was Texas.
I can just look it up real quick. No.
that's not that. Joe, what up, Joe? What's your cons, Joe?
Well, so now I'm gonna have to rewrite my whole entire brain process here because you guys all fucked me all up.
Joe saw a movie and thought it was something else.
I did. I mean, I did. I honest to God, I totally missed the time jump. To be honest with you, I think, you know what? What messed me up is because I was going into this thinking that it was while he was the BTK killer.
Yeah.
So when I saw this one, I saw who the actor was. I was going into this thinking I was going to see like Dahmer or My Friend Dahmer, which are not necessarily violent. And if you guys haven't checked them out, they're actually really both good movies about Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Jeffrey Dahmer wasn't violent. Like what?
No, the movies, those two movies itself are not necessarily violent.
Yeah, I got you.
However, the way they were done was similar to, like, honestly, I would recommend both those movies because if you ended up liking Clovehitch Killer, I would recommend both Dahmer and My Friend Dahmer, because while there are kills in those, like, I would have wanted more kills, but now I'm realizing you guys have pointed out it's been 10 years, so he's not really doing it anymore. He's just been trying to push in the monster that's been inside of him, and he does this one last one, which is all botched because his son figures it all out. Like, honestly, you guys have just really pretty much shown me what the fucking movie was.
We'll come back to that.
But yeah, so that was it. Like, I was gonna say was the missing of killings, but now I understand why you had the missing. It makes sense.
It's not, it wasn't about the killings at all. Yeah.
Right. It all makes you guys help me make sense.
JR, what good, JR?
All right, here we go. So when I started watching, I was texting you guys. I was like, wow, I feel like I'm watching a Lifetime movie, because it really felt like it was like a Lifetime movie, But
I can see that.
Yeah, for me, it's like I know it wasn't about the violence, but there was one scene in particular where I felt like almost like flashbacks of what he did were needed. Like, you remember, the thing that triggered him is the fact that he destroyed all this evidence, all this this memorabilia of everything he did. And yes, he did it to, basically appease his son. But at the same time, when he did it, he tried to reconstruct what he was doing by dressing himself up as a woman, taking pictures of strangulation. And then he goes and sits down in the bed. And he's looking at these pictures, realizing it's him. It's not the victims that he wants to see.
Yep.
So I felt at that point, instead of having him scream, he should have had like momentary like flashbacks of everything he did, because then they would have built up this monster coming out. Because even when he broke into her house, and this part confused it big time, he ties her up, and then he goes behind her and then strangles her, but then doesn't strangle her, which I thought at that point he was going to kill her. He didn't. And then next, she's sitting up, and then he puts a bag over her head. It was like almost like, it was confusing to me, because here's a guy who's on the brink of going back to what he loved to do. But yeah, it was almost like, if you go and look at the other take of it, it's like, it was like he was still fighting himself. Like, he couldn't like follow through with it. But then when Tyler came in, you kind of see the monster come out, because it's almost like he was willing to kill his son in order to hide the secret and continue what he was doing. So for me, there was a couple things. And the last thing is, I felt like the Casey character was wasted. Casey character was so interesting because she was the
The twist was good.
The twist was great, but it just felt like I wanted more from her.
Yeah.
Because she was such a great character in the film. She had such a great story to tell. And when the story was told, it felt like it took all the way to the end. I wish it would have been a little bit more to the midway point where you get certain like crumbs being thrown at you. Like, her tied to one of the victims. I mean, that's a money knock. I said it's like I would have loved to see flashbacks of him fighting these demons and the demons winning, but I could see why they didn't do it because it was more like we said before. Is like, what would you do if your dad was a serial killer?
All right. So listening to you guys, I've had to completely reform my notes because now we have this time jump, and so you've got he's been keeping this monster inside. And his sons now come to figure it out. So when you get to the scene with the son showing up, I think it was kind of a relief for him.
The only reason why I disagree with that is when he got the chance, he tried to kill his son. He just had the son went in there with the intentions of not killing because he had no bullets in that rifle, in the gun. But his dad didn't know that. Then when his dad got the gun, he started, sweet talking him into passing over the weapon. And the first chance he got, he pulled that trigger and there was nothing in there. That's when his son knew, okay, he was going to kill me. It's on. That's when the shit went down.
Because the monster had been dead and it started being reawakened. And that moment awakened his monster.
Now, I think he would have killed his son regardless. Because the minute he grabbed Cassie, immediately he said, she's brainwashing you. So he went to that dominant BTK killer mindset where the woman's brainwashing the man. And you have to make her suffer for it. So the minute he knocked her out and basically grabbed the gun, his intent was to kill his son. If it wasn't for Casey basically knocking him overhead.
And that brings me back to my theory of thinking what happened 10 years ago when this car accident happened with Uncle, I forget his name, Uncle Rudy. He said they got into a car accident. It was an attempted suicide, but your back's hurting. So I'm like, I don't know if I'm pulling strings, but to me, your back hurts. Uncle Rudy can't speak now, and you intended to kill your son, and your survival, or your uncle.
I see what she. I know.
Yeah.
In my brain, I'm like, I see where you're going.
He was very meticulous. This guy, what was his name? Don. Don was very meticulous, but the fact that this whole thing started was because his son Tyler takes his truck to go date this girl, try to make out a little bit, but then they find a crumbled up bondage picture. Why would he keep up a picture crumbled up right on the side on the passenger side there, just sloppily left there for anyone to find when he was this CLOVEHITCH killer for years and left no trace of evidence, but yet he just leaves this piece of crumbled up paper with a woman in bondage for anyone to find.
I can answer that. It was probably something that he looked at while he was having a moment, if you know what I mean. So for people who are killers, a lot of them involve sexuality and abuse, basically. So it's probably a picture that he had used to do something and then just left. It's his car.
Right. But again, he was this killer. When only evidence he left was the CLOVEHITCH, and that was it.
So we're now jumping 10 years ahead. So let's just go ahead and say at this point, he probably has a drinking problem. He's probably been drinking. So one night he got drunk, got in his car, had this picture, did something, left it there. Like that's the way I would look at that, to be honest. Like if I were to be sitting there evaluating a crime scene, that would be something I would take into consideration, that a picture that was present in that kind of scene involved, if it didn't involve because you were trying to kill that person, there was a sexual reason why that picture was there.
And you notice, and touching a little bit on JR, what he said earlier about the triggers, where they burn the stuff, like the license and everything that his son found. But you also notice the moment he's trying to be intimate with his wife, and he wasn't turned on by it. She doesn't do that kinky shit. And so I think that also put him overboard as well.
Good call. Yeah, that's
also what he did is when after dinner, a lot of times he would go into the shed. That was his alone time in the shed.
The guy's past his prime. Now we're starting to make mistakes. So I'm assuming, okay, I could buy that. I could buy that. Other than that, my only complaint, and it's not really too much of a huge complaint, but a little bit of the long runtime for a film that's kind of a slow burn. And I was interested the whole way through. Don't get me wrong, but once Tyler found him the first time with a pistol, then it goes to the flashback. At that point, I was like, oh man, I thought the film was almost over. Now we're gonna go to this whole other exposition now. So that kind of like, but that was it. Other than that, the movie, I enjoyed it. The ending we'll get into. It could be, deciphered any which way, but I think was a little strange where he gets knocked on the head and he had a wound on his head when he got hit with the lamp, but that when he find his body with the gunshot, there's blunt trauma to that guy's head, and the police don't question that whatsoever.
What happened to the woman at the end? She ain't gonna say anything. Did they keep her quiet?
Yeah,
like,
good point. Well, she never saw his
You
face.
know
She never saw his face. Yeah.
That's a good point, though.
I didn't like the fact that, one, the father was still made out to be some kind of hero for the community.
Yep.
And two, all these victims were left with no answers.
All to protect the family.
All to protect
family first. Family first.
And even for Casey, even though she knew this was a killer, how is that really gonna?
He killed her mom. He killed
her
mom.
Mom. Exactly. But the fact that she has to hide everything too. What
well,
church is that?
Did she get closure? Did she get closure?
He's dead.
That's the question. Did she get closure?
I'm saying because
maybe
he's
that's
dead.
why.
Her closure was him being dead.
Yeah, I can see that.
But you gotta remember, she stood up for the other victims too. She was like,
she did, but
she
was part of him being dead. Keep the secret because she got to kill him to revenge her mother.
I remember one thing she goes, "This is what you wanted." And that's her last line to him. This is what you wanted. So it's more like he had control of the situation more than she did, because originally she wanted to shoot him. And the fact that it's what he wanted to protect his family.
That's right.
They not leave it on her conscience that she did this. That's where I veered more that it was Tyler that did it, because Tyler had the last say of everything. Reason. Yes. All this is what you wanted.
And this is why we review movies. This is literally right now why we do this.
For me, I liked it because I'm a big gore horror film person, but when it comes to like Joe, the psychological stuff, and it just brings me in. For me, I would rate it probably a good 3.5 to 4, because there were situations where I'm like, it could have went one way, but we'll never know a lot of these answers.
This is 3 corners. You got to pick one, though. You got to pick one. 3.5 or 4? What is it, Lexi?
I'm going to go with 3.5.
Yeah, that's fair. Joe, how about you?
Me? Actually, because I had to rewrite my whole entire thing to say while watching this with you guys.
GR, this guy saw a totally different
I originally was going to give it a 3, but listening to all you guys and in my brain remembering some of the scenes, I originally wrote that I was going to knock this down for the lack of kills, and then realized what this movie was essentially in a whole. So I'm going to give it a 3.5. I was going to go 3. I'm going to give it a 3.5. And I know you just said you got to pick one. I'm going to scratch almost at a close to a 4. But I'm going to give it a 3.5 just for this. But it's close enough to a 4 because you guys actually made me see this movie a lot more differently and appreciate it more, because I was going to knock it down.
For me, the knock I'll have on it is that an hour and 49 minutes. And it took basically 59 minutes for the movie to really start picking up steam. I do like the aspect of the storyline. I'm a storyline guy, so I do like the storyline. My horror side, I wished it was just some kind of violent, just something, just at least some kind of flashback where that scene where he's screaming on the bed, he gets that flash, like, oh, sorry, I'm out, I'm gonna go kill somebody, something like that. But overall, it's a slow burn. It picks up towards the end. The twist of it is it's a great twist on it. I wish they would have did more with Cassie. I'm gonna give it a 3.
Yeah. I'm gonna go 3.5 as well. I was leaning towards 3 initially as I'm watching it, because as I'm watching the film, I'm kind of like dissecting it. All right, I don't like this, I don't like that. How is it gonna affect my score? but the acting was so good in this film. Like Dylan McDermott, whether you like the film or not, he, like I said, I didn't recognize him, and I watched
He
him a
can
lot of stuff.
he can almost do no wrong.
So he's gonna elevate it from a 3 to 3.5 because I love this performance, and the fact that when he talked to Tyler and he made up all these bullshit lies about blaming it on his brother or even when he called him point blank with the woman, oh, we're role playing essentially, you know what I'm saying? Like he sounds so believable because he believes his own shit. So I loved him. He killed it for me, and the supporting cast from Tyler to Cassie, everyone did a good job. They played their role. That's what I really liked about the film. Yeah, GR's right. For horror fans, they're not gonna really gravitate towards this film as much because of the lack of violence and kills. But again, it's not about that. They're telling a story about a killer past his prime and what happens in that GR. I didn't catch this with the pictures. When he got upset was because they ain't doing nothing for him. He needs the real thing. That's a good catch. I missed that. Lexi, since you're our guest here, we're gonna put you on a spot real quick. This is what we're gonna do when we got a guest. Please, you're a horror fiend, are you not?
Yeah.
All right. Top 10 horror films that really get you going. What you got?
So I live with a mother who's obsessed with Halloween. So I grew up at the age of 5 watching The Exorcist. So The Exorcist is by far my favorite. Yeah, I'm sorry. The Exorcist is by far my favorite. That's where I started, and I think I watched it 100 million times.
It's still the scariest movie ever made, in my opinion.
You have to watch the director's cut.
Right, and I try to veer more towards the Exorcist type or the possession type of films, ones that like really get under my skin. I like movies that scare me, and I'm like, man, do I really need to watch a Disney movie before I go to sleep? Or that's the type of movies I like. I want you to scare me. So that's my number one, and because I was 5 years old when I watched it. But number 2 would be Freddy Krueger. And that's my guy.
Wait, GR, was it you that or
I am fucking terrified of Freddy Krueger.
You're the Freddy guy. GR is the Michael Myers guy. I'm sorry.
And then it, which I did watch your guys' point of view on it, and my vote would be the old version of it. And then the Conjuring series. Now, not just 1, 2, and 3. There's more to the Conjuring series. I believe there's 8 of them altogether. So that whole, I like stuff that, and it's not in the order that they came out in. So I like that whole series where it's you have to watch it in the chronological order.
I love part 2.
Yeah. And then I Am Lisa is another, it's not too horror-like, but it's a werewolf one. I like it. I would say it's more like a low-budget type of movie. But it was one that caught my attention and I like. Jason and Michael Myers, of course. Chucky, can't forget about that little man. Insidious is another good one.
Oh, wait, you said Insidious? You see behind me, right?
Yep.
I have Insidious behind me right now.
Yeah, Insidious, because I like the actor, the main dude, and he's also in the Conjuring series as well.
Patrick Wilson.
Yes, that's his name. And then I don't know if you guys seen Oculus. That's another one. I haven't seen that yet. It's more, I think, psychological.
That's with Kieran Gillen, right? They go from Guardians of the Galaxy. Is that when she got the eye?
I think it is. Yes. It's on my list, and it is one. It's like I've been on a lot of lists.
See, that movie it got lost because it came out around the time when Insidious and Conjuring and Sinister.
Yeah.
When those movies blew up,
really
and
good.
it kind of got lost in that shuffle.
Yeah.
And then because of you guys, Saint Maud had to be my top 10. That was so awesome. It's one of the ones I've never seen before.
I'm glad. Like I said, I love you guys.
Possession side, so I was like, "Whoa, this is one I've never seen before." And thanks to you guys' channel, I was able to see it, and it's made my top 10.
Thank you for that. I mean, you did a really good job with no prep. We just threw it on you, and you had these movies.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
You know
good.
what? I think it's the fact that she knew who she was joining on the.
Well, yeah. Real. See, if you're
So
a horror fan,
yeah.
that's how you know you're a horror fan. Because if someone says, "What's your top 10?" you don't be like, "Oh my god, hold on." You know already. All right, I got a good idea of what it is. So that's awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you also, Lexi, for coming on and taking time to coming on the channel and requesting this film and watching our videos too. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome, and thank you for having me on here.
Yeah, you're part of the you're part of the
totally
family.
Out of my comfort zone.
That's all right.
Was worth it.
We all start somewhere. I remember when Joe first came on. That thing, Joe's face.
Oh wait, I was like this. So hi. Yeah, no, I really like this movie.
Look at Joe. He looks like Cliff Steele, doesn't he, Gio? Look at him.
What? Cliff?
Tony?
Shit, what are you talking about? That's not a compliment.
All right, so with that being said, this is the end of the video, guys. Thank you for joining us on this video. Thank you again to Lexi for coming on, making the recommendation for the CLOVEHITCH Killer. I would recommend it to people who like stuff like real crime and true ID and stuff like that. That's the kind of audience this film is catering to. Maybe not the horror fiends, but the true ID people who love true crime, serial killers, and all that stuff. Good film for that. I'm not alienating horror fans, but if you're a gore fiend, you might be disappointed. So we like to give expectations before we recommend something. But thank you once again. I am Ricky Grimes. We got Lexi. We got Jose Lopez, JR, and we got Joe. Thank you for coming on, guys. Thank you for watching. Don't forget, smash that like button. Smash it. Smash it. Subscribe to the channel, guys. Thank you for coming along. We'll see you next week on 3 Corners of Horror. Stay scared.
Thanks, guys.
Don't tell anyone, I promise.
This thing is loaded. Okay? Don't argue. My back is acting up as it is.